do. All right, I want to welcome everyone. Let's class of Noahide laws. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this class of Noahide laws, holding by the laws of idolatry. It's idolatry part 3, or actually part 4, and that is that we're going to look at. We're going to look at idolatry in the sense that we saw its prohibition, why it's prohibition, the idea of speech, the idea of deeds. Now we're going to look at the nitty gritty, right? We're going to look at the laws pertaining to idolatry. Now remember, person not allowed to get any benefits from idolatry. And it's forbidden as well to learn from or debate idolaters or those who hold corrupt beliefs, right? So it would also be forbidden for Jews to debate, right? Orthodox Jews debate Reform Jews, conservative Jews. Essentially, we believe we're right, and therefore, waste of time, right? Total, not only a waste of time, but you don't want to give them a platform. All the great rabbis, the last generation of America, according to everybody, agreed. They agreed on this. You don't give them a soapbox. You're like, oh, what are you afraid of? We have what to answer. But the problem is, as most people know, it's like you're talking apples and oranges. You're not talking the same language. You're not talking the same language. You're not talking to them, right? You're talking sort of at them, and you're going like this, crisscross, right? So because they have heretical views, what are we worried about? They may have an effect on you, regardless of how strong you may be, in your spiritual beliefs and whatever. You don't have anything to do with them. You don't want them scoffing at Judaism, other things. You don't give them a bottom line, you don't give them a platform. Right? We know too also by these so-called super Noahides, you also don't give them a platform. Right? Okay, you may have to call them out. You may have to, explain to people why, they should listen to them. Whatever. But debating them, waste of time. You're not talking the same, you're not talking the same language, at all. You're talking two totally different things. So there's no point. You tell me they'd be more open-minded. They want to hear it. They don't want to hear. They want, like Reform and conservative rabbis and, and Reform and conservative Jews. They're not interested in truth, most of them. They want to hear what they want to hear. And they want to do what they want to do. Not only that, they want you to bag it and say it's okay. Well, there are things you can't do. There are things you can't say. I spoke earlier, my class in the book of Leviticus. I mentioned, someone wants to say, they want you to say that an intermarriage is a good thing. Well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You don't like it? My husband say, go eat kogel. Right? You don't like it? Okay. What can I do? That's what the Torah says. The Torah says forbidden. But you have to recognize it. Why do I have to recognize it? It's your flesh and blood. Blood is thicker than water. Yeah. Family's an albatross. Can be an albatross. Want someone intermarries, kiss Judaism goodbye. Yeah, if the person's interested in conversion or whatever, one thing. But if not, what are you going to tell them? They're not interested. Right? So, they won't debate you either. Right? Common misconception. They may think, oh, I get all the answers. You don't have anything what to say. They're not even going to debate you. Why aren't they going to debate you? Because what happens if you're right? Right? They're not going to have the conversation. So in general, we don't waste our time over here. Right? Nothing to gain. Nothing to gain. Not only that, they're going to spew their heretical beliefs. You're giving them you're giving them a place to speak. You're giving them legitimacy, essentially. That you can't do. 100% that you can't do. I would say by certain Orthodox rabbis also you can't. They're also heretical. So, you sit there and debate them. I've heard somebody total heretic, everything else. Like, I'll debate him. I'll debate Rabbi Singer. I'll debate, Why do you give the guy a platform? Guy's a fraud. You don't give someone a fraud a platform. Right? Am I worried person's going to outshine me? He's going to know more? No, I'm not worried about that. But you don't give someone like that a platform. So bowing, honoring any man who made himself into a god, forbidden. Bowing before such a person is permitted only, case of fear, out of honor for one's position. Right? We're going to, we'll see. See what that is. Forbidden to honor, show respect before a person who has an idol embroidered upon his clothing. He's wearing an idol on his clothing, people will bow down to. Right? You can't honor that person. Also, if they're wearing an image of an idol. Now, what does it mean to show respect? Either bowing, remove your hats, kissing another's hand. Sign of respect. Standing when the person enters the room. Curtsy. Right now, what is the limit take over here? The prohibition is only showing honor because of the idol itself. Or the idolatry associated with the person. Because if the idol is carried upon the person, totally unrelated to the individual's honor, then you could bow or kiss the person's hand. What's the example? Example is one may stand or remove his hat for someone who's wearing a crucifix. Right? That's going to be a question. Is the person allowed to? They're wearing a cross. Now, there's a difference of opinion whether someone wears a cross. It's a cross. What's the word? It's a cross worshipped. Right? That's the whole question. Right? Some say it is, some say it isn't. But in this case, it depends. What does it depend on? If the person's a priest or a minister, 100% showing them any honor is prohibited. If the person is a powerful official of a secular government, now that position requires honor, then you're permitted, right? But again, if the crucifix itself, now I could be wrong here, right? But there's a difference of opinion whether the crucifix itself is worshipped. In other words, if a person wore it around their neck, the person worships that. Difference of opinion among rabbinical authorities if that's the case. If it's not worshipped, shouldn't be a problem, unless it's a priest, right? A priest, you don't give honor to. Doesn't deserve honor in any way, shape, or form. Even if the crucifix is not worshipped, you don't honor them. Also, clothing or vestments of idolatrous priests. Now, they're not necessarily idolaters, unless they have the image of an idol. They wear these garments for their own honor, position them for the sake of the idol. So if that's true, it's not idolaters. Right? Not doing it for the sake of the idol. Right? It's part of the makeup. Right? It's part of, the honor for themselves. Right? They will make a big distinction. The big rabbis wear long coats if they're not Hasidic. What they call in the vernacular frock. Got 3 buttons in the back, the long coat. Why do they wear that? For honor. Right? For whatever position they have. Right? That's a different issue. Right? That would be, that person would stand up. You show respect. You show honor. Over here, if it's for the sake of the clothing, but it's not for the sake of the idol, right? I.e., that's why they're wearing it. So if honor and position, very good. That would be okay. If they're a priest, again, totally forbidden. Now, what about business? Noahide may not sell any known thing to be idolaters. Idolatry forbidden, get benefit from. Not any item, even something non-idolatrous, to a Noahide, if he knows it's going to be used for idolatrous purposes. In other words, you have something, even if it's not idolatrous, but you know, if you give it to this person, he's going to use it for idolatry, forbidden. Therefore, selling Xmas lights to idolaters, permitted. Why? Permitted because the purpose is not intrinsically prohibited. Now, very interesting, just throw this out there. They, here in Israel, they sell these lights during Sukkot. Now, Israelis don't know what they are. I mean, they just look at them being lights. So, very nice. So, they'll put them in their sukkah, and they'll go on and off or whatever, right? So, but if you know what it is, right, you shouldn't use them. You know where it comes from. Again, why could you use it? Why is it less of a problem in general? Less of a problem because it's not used for idolatry. Right? That's not what it's used for. Right? It's not intrinsically prohibited. But I'm not allowed to sell idolatrous candles, other utensils of actual worship. They're going to use it for worship, that I can't do. If the items are readily available at the same or better price elsewhere, and an Noahide's livelihood is affected, but let's say, it makes good money from this, is he still allowed to sell it to an idolater because he's going to use it for idolatry? Then he could. Why? Because he's not directly contributing to the idolater's act. What could we say? Okay, we know he's going to use it for that, potentially. I'm not telling him to use it for that. He could have used it for something else. Right? But even if it's going to cause a loss of business, then he'd be allowed to. That would be permitted because we could use the rationale. Who says he's going to use it for that? But I would assume if the person would say 100%, I'm going to use this for idolatry, yeah, then you can't sell it to him. And what he's going to do is he's going to sue you. You have to sell it to me. Problem. You know he's going to use it for idolatry. If there's a doubt, then that would be okay. If you know for sure he's not going to, also be okay. Person should not buy goods and donate money or other material with such resources will go directly to perpetuate idolatrous institutions or activities. Church bake sale, right? That'd be forbidden, right? Because where's the money going? The church. But you could donate or purchase goods where the funds are going, let's say, for something else, right? Let's say they're raising money for homeless shelter. Let's say it's a Christian charity, but it's going to poor people. You could donate to that. That'd be allowed to. Let's say a person buys a lot of things from an idolater and unwittingly purchased or received those items. He didn't realize they were there. So now he's got these idolatrous items. So they need to nullify them. Now, what can he do? He can return them to the idolater. Right? He's allowed to return it to him. Problem is, you can't give it to anyone else. But they're going to use it for idolatry. So give it to him. But what if he says, or she says, no, you got to store credit, you're not getting your money back. Then you got to get rid of it. Make sure no one can use it. Right? If you can return it, very good. You can't return it, you can't give it to, you can't give it to a non-Jew, you can't give it to a Jew. Talmud and halacha prohibits conducting any business with idolaters on their festivals in the days immediately preceding it. Includes repaying loans, buying, selling. Why? What's the reason? Concern is that the idolater is making money, he's getting his money back. It's going to prompt the idolater to thank his God on the festival. Now today, this has pretty much almost no application. No application, right? Because the commentaries say we live amongst the non-Jews. We live amongst the non-Jews, impossible not to do business with them on any days. Because we're surrounded by them. Right? So, this application, is almost non-existent. today. First, his parents, other relatives, leave them an inheritance. And the inheritance they leave them has some things that are idolaters. Can't give them to your siblings or other idolaters. You're allowed to take possession and then destroy them or nullify them, either way. Right? You got to get rid of it either way. You cannot give it to anyone else. You got to destroy it. But if you inherited idolaters' items from a Jew, right, we said before, a Jew, if it's a Jew's idolatry or idol, whatever you want to call it, that's not nullified. You have to destroy it. Can't nullify it. Non-Jews you could. A Jew's, impossible. So therefore, you got to destroy it. You have no choice. Right? You have to destroy it. Now, what about going to idolatrous festivals? This is very common. Unfortunately, very common. Prohibited to attend idolatrous festivals at which idols are served by any acts of idolatry or prayer. If there's no actual idolatrous service, a person can attend the gathering even if it's religious or seasonal connotation. Therefore, a person can attend an office Xmas party if the main purpose is not relevant to the holiday. Right? We said last week, there's a whole question about going into a church. Right? Whether you're allowed to go into church or not allowed to go into church, etc. Which we're going to see more. We're going to see more about that. Now, but if there's no, idolatry going on, going to an Xmas party has other issues. Certainly for a Jew. But let's say, you work for a company, everybody has to go. No exceptions. Right? Everybody has to go. Right? So if everyone has to go, what do? I know someone that works for a company, he's got no choice. Everybody knows. He shows up and he drinks soda. That's it. He mingles, says hello to people, and he leaves. He sees the people he needs to see, and then he leaves. Right? There are a lot of issues. For a Jew, a lot of issues. For a Noahide over here, it's certainly not the best. I wouldn't say it's the best going, but again, the main purpose for a non-Jew over here is not the purpose of the holiday. Right? It's not a purpose that's relevant to idolatry. Right? It's, a social thing. Whether they should go to a social thing or not, another issue. Right? But, for a Jew, it's a bigger issue. Much bigger issue. Right? Work things and how to deal with that. But by a Noahide, it's a different issue. Right? So that's to be allowed to go as long as, there's no religion. There's nothing going on there. It's just a party. Now, what about entering places of idolatry? So, buildings dedicated or constructed for idolatry, prohibited. Right? The purpose of it is, what does it sound like? Idolatry. Right? Right? Total idolatry. So that would be forbidden. Right? You can't go in. You can't use these buildings or benefit on them anyway. Right? So, there's no actual prohibition against Noahide just entering them, but you should avoid. You shouldn't do it. Right? Jews definitely are not allowed to go in. Right? Entering a church or other place of idolatry fraught with a lot of problems. So I was going to say, what would happen? Murphy's Law. I would say Murphy-Stein's Law. What would happen? You got to go to the bathroom. The only place around is the church. Can you go into the church and go to the bathroom? Right? For a Jew, that'd be a problem. I can say, but what about, what about the masses? You can't do what you need to do in public, let's say, or there's nowhere else to go. Right? But, so that might override it. We call covenant bris, honoring, people that you're not going to do that, in public, or whatever the case is. But a Jew's not allowed to go into church, period. The question is, what about, God forbid, the recovering alcoholic, right? Alcoholics Anonymous in a room in the church. We'll see. Right? We'll see. Right? But for a Jew to go into a church, 100% forbidden. Right? For a non-Jew, for a Noahide, the whole question here. Do we hold the church as shituf or not? And even if it is shituf, doesn't apply to them. Right? It's not that they forbidden for them. Difference of opinion. Major discussion. For a Jew, nothing to talk about forbidden. But nonetheless, it's not a good thing here. A lot of issues. So now today, probably most Noahide, the relatives who are involved with idolatrous religions, i.e. Christianity. Right, let's say. Now, you got a problem. Because what do? They make life cycle events. Where? In the church. Now, a person comes out of Christianity and you believe it's totally false, puts you in a bad position. 100% puts you in a bad position. So there's a lot written whether Jews can enter such places. But not so much about Noahides. What they're allowed to do. Is there a limitation or not? So we're going to summarize over here like this. If the life cycle events are idolatrous in their purpose, then you can't go. In other words, if the event itself is idolatry, you can't go. What would that mean? Church confirmation, christenings, ordinations, other things. Be totally forbidden. Let's say you had a relative singing in the choir. I don't know, singing in the service. It's idolatrous service. Can't go. Can't listen. Why? Again, the essence of it is idolatrous. Weddings. Now, weddings might be a different issue. Why? Weddings not necessarily idolatrous. Concept of marriage, which has been demolished today, but concept of marriage is universal, sort of. Right? It will change a little bit today. Now, what happens, common case is, person has a relative getting married in the church. Now, does that mean the ceremony is going to be inherently idolatrous? Not necessarily. So therefore, even, there's a problem here. For a Jew, again, there's nothing to talk about. For a non-Jew, certainly probably shouldn't attend. Right? Probably shouldn't attend. Now, what if it would create great conflict or strife? In such a case, the person probably could attend, but you got to be very careful. Because if there's a service going on, you cannot participate. At best, you could be passive. But someone's going to say, I don't want to walk into a church. I don't have anything to do with this. How much friction is it going to cause? If it's going to cause a lot of friction, it may not be worth it. If you don't care, people know where you stand. Okay? Right? But you got to be careful, because anything you do that may be perceived as idolatrous is going to be a problem. So therefore, if you had to go, you felt you had no choice, then it's best to either stand or sit in the back. So you're showing you're not participating. But again, you got to be careful. If you stick out like a sore thumb, everyone's going to see. So, the question is this really going to help? Is that really going to help or not? But you have to see what the effect's going to be. If it's going to be a huge issue. If it's going to be a huge issue, then, it might be better to go, but you got to be very, very careful. Person can attend an event not intrinsically idolatrous, not held in a church sanctuary. Let's say it's held in a social hall. An AA meeting, voting, right? Person goes to vote in some, social hall in the church. You allowed to go? Not inherently forbidden, right? Again, it's for non-Jews. Not inherently forbidden. There's no idolatry going on. Right? This is even if your absence wouldn't create any strife. But if there's a service, as we mentioned, you can't participate. That's no question. Person can attend an entirely secular event in a church, let's say a concert, town meeting, something. Again, providing you avoid any action that appears to give deference to idols. Again, this will be a totally secular thing. It's not going to be in the main sanctuary, right? Pretty much. There'll be in the side room, I don't know, a card room, a social hall, let's say better, social hall, or some other room. That wouldn't be an issue. Right? That wouldn't be an issue. If it's in the sanctuary, then I understand. Right? That would be an issue. So here we have a chart. Right? If the idolatrous service going on in the sanctuary, can't attend. If it's another room, idolatrous service, can't go. Entire secular facility, still the same thing. If there's an idolatrous service, no matter where it is, in the church, not in the church, another room, this, that, forbidden. Now, let's say it's not intrinsically idolatrous. If it's in the sanctuary, you can attend. It's going to cause strife. But you can't do anything to honor the idols. If it's in another room, you can attend. If your absence wouldn't create strife over here. But again, you cannot participate. And if it's a entire secular facility, you can attend even if your absence would not create strife, as long as you don't participate. So that'd be much less of an issue. And if the entire thing is secular, in the sanctuary, you could attend. But again, don't honor the idols. If it's another room, you certainly can attend. And if it's an entire secular facility, all the more so you could attend. So that wouldn't be an issue. But, for practical purpose here, a Noahide can enter a church for business purposes or any other practical reason. It will be an issue for a Jew, right? Even if there's no service going on, right? For a Jew, we're much more stringent, because we hold shituf is forbidden. So if that's the case, it doesn't matter what's going on there. Walking in is a problem. Total problem. One Jew, you go there to play cards. I don't know. You have a business meeting in one of the rooms. Is that forbidden? No. If it's for business purposes, nothing else, not a problem. Definitely not a problem. Yeah, so that's a more practical side, right, of entering places of idolatry, idolatrous festivals, weddings, inheriting idolatry, business, and the like. So any questions on any of that? Or any general questions? All right, let's make one announcement just for the next couple weeks. So next week, 100%, there'll be a class. The week after, that Sunday, the 29th, I will be en route. I'll be getting in early in Miami. So, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever, night flight. So I'm going to be there on Sunday, 29th. So I can't imagine, depending on what's going on, that it's going to be a class then. And the week after also, it's going to be my last day there. So I don't think I'm going to be around. So next week for sure we'll have class. And I guess 2 weeks after that, 29th and the 5th, probably we'll be off. And then, we'll be back up running. So that seems like, if it's possible, the 29th, to give a class, the 5th, let's say, to give a class, not Super Bowl Sunday, it's a week before. We'll see. I just don't know. I have no idea what my schedule is going to be. So probably, probably best just to leave it. Give you guys a few weeks break from me. That'll, that'll be a benefit, I think, for everybody. But anyway, that's the plans. I'm supposed to be there the 29th, leaving the 28th, which is Saturday night, and coming back to Israel the 6th, and getting back here the 7th. So the week after that, Super Bowl Sunday, February 12th, that's when we'd resume. If if that changes, I'll let you know. But for sure, next week we're good. And then probably probably the next 2 weeks after that we'll what do you call it? Take off. Yeah, I guess that's my announcement. See, yeah, no, class will be next week. Class will be next week, the 22nd, 29th, right, and not on the 29th, right? So class next week, not next 2 weeks. Class for next week, and then 2 weeks after that we'll be off, 29th and the 6th. If I see that, I have to see what my schedule is going to be. I don't know. I got a lot of classes during the week. I think a lot of them just going to get wiped out because I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I mean, I have an idea, but I don't know whenever it's going to. I don't know what the plan's going to be. Either case, it might be good just to, if I'm around, which I don't know, I'll be around somewhat. Maybe set up a chance to talk, just to schmooze a little bit. So, people during the day on, your normal hours and not, any crazy hours. I don't know. We'll see. It's gonna be a crazy week, I'm sure, but we'll see how it goes. I'll try and stay out of trouble, but there's no there's no guarantee for that. You just never know. But anyway, very good. So if there are no questions, I'm going to sign out. If you have any questions, feel free. Just shoot me an email. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. Wish everyone a good middle of the day, almost end of the day for me, and everyone have a great rest of the week.
You are currently the only person in this conference.